Hello everyone, my name is Laura.
And I am Lina.
In this video, we will analyze an excerpt by Kate Chopin, The Story of an Hour, and a poem, When We Two Parted by Lord Byron. The first one belonged to the American Naturalism, and the second one to the British Romanticism movement.
In this literary analysis, we will follow the TAD approach. Firstly, we will comment on the relevant aspect of the author's life. Then, we will develop the TAD approach, taking into account the structure, figure of speech, linguistic device, and rhetorical terms.
Lord Byron was born on January 1788. He was a British politician, peer, and a leading figure. Byron's first publication was a collection of poems, Fugitive Pieces, in 1807, but real poetic success came in 1812, when Byron published the first two cantos of Childe Harold's Pilgrimage in 1812 and in 1818. In 1807, Byron has his first volume of poetry, Hours of Idleness. It received bad reviews. The poet answers his critics with satire. English bards and scout reviewers in 1808. Lord is more lauded for his political satire and his longer narrative poems than for poems such as When We Two Parted, which is a short lyric poem. It was written in 1808 and it portrays the dissolution of a relationship between two people.
The Story of an Hour is a short story written by Catherine Chopin on April 1894. She was an American author who made her mark reading fiction. Her best novella was The Awakening. She published by Young Folk in 1894 and Anna in Acadie in 1897. Kay was raised in French and Irish tradition of Catholicism and educated in a convent. Kay was a passionate reader. She loved to read contemporary novel, fairy tale, poetry, and religious dramas. Around 1890, Chopin got a self-writing career, contributing short stories and reading articles to local publications of literary journals. She wrote this story in a period of time where women had no rights and men dominated their life and everything on it.
We will analyze some elements between naturalism and romanticism. Lina, tell me about reality in American naturalism.
Okay, in American naturalism, writers confronted reality. They intensified realism, focusing on hopeless, inhuman situations. What about in your movement?
Okay, in British Romanticism, writers escaped from reality. They took reality in less volume and detail, and they made emphasis on internal realities.
Oh, wow. Well, what about we discuss our character? Is it any in your movement?
Okay, in British Romanticism, there were melancholic characters with the desire of love and liberty, and women were like an inspiration for poets.
Nice. Naturalism includes characters from societies whose fates are determined by heredity, environment, or bad luck. In this case, the way of how women are a property of their husband without taking into account the woman's rights. Laura, how is considered nature in your movement?
Okay, writers viewed nature as a magical and even divine world. Writers were inspired by nature to express their feelings. What about yours?
Well, the typical naturalism conflicts men against nature and men against himself, showing nature in a different force acting on the life of human beings, which demonstrate of the effect of the forces of heredity or environment on individual lives. Designs. According to Jules Daver, typical naturalists tell hope to an inspiring middle class against existing elites and the industrial working class through their subject matter of mode of an address. So, is any present of social concern in your movement, Laura?
Yes, there is. Not in my poem, but in British Romanticism, many authors make references to different social concerns. An example of that is the poem Chimney Sweeper by William Blake.
Okay.
Okay, Lina, do you have any other aspect of your movement to share with me?
Of course, in naturalism, objectivizes crimes because the author observed the reality, writers are impersonal tone, and the author is separate from the world of the story and acts an objective transcription. What about in yours?
Okay, in British Romanticism, subjectivism primes. Writers examine their surroundings from their viewpoint.
Okay. I'm totally changing the topic right now. So I was wondering if we can talk about linguistic element in our masterpieces.
Oh, yes. In the poem When We Two Parted, the poetic voice is developed in first-person narrative using the pronoun I. The poem has 4 stanzas composed by 8 verses each one. The rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. It also contains archaic English terms like thee, thy, or word, mine. In the metric, the iambic phenomenon is in each foot following the pattern and stress, stressed, and stress. And the trimeter that are 3 stressed syllables. In this image, you can observe the metric of the 3rd stanza of the poem. In the poem, also we find tropes as well as schemes, but there is more presence of tropes that produces a shift in the meaning of words. Here you can take a look at some tropes and schemes found throughout the poem. Lina, what about the linguistic analysis in your excerpt?
Okay, well, The Story of an Hour is a short story which is made up of 20 short paragraphs, and some of those are consistent in using 2 or 3 sentences. It is developed in third-person narrative in which Miss Muller is the center of the action, and the narrator is a non-participant of the story. It is told in different perspectives, and we can use a specific and formal language, which is currently used in passive and participle form. It also includes a vast amount of literary device, specifically in the drama and situational irony. This story presents tropes and schemes which dominate more schemes.
Lina, let's move to the semantic aspects.
Okay.
In my poem, When We Two Parted, are clearly seen the romantic characteristics such as the expression of personal emotions, since the poem uses first-person narrative. The poem also incorporates nature elements to express a state of melancholy, such as words like the dew of the morning and chill, which is characteristic of the romantic movement. The title, When We Two Parted, is a subordinate clause, therefore cannot stand alone as a complete sentence as it is. And the reason why the author entitled the poem so may be to convey the idea of an ongoing sentiment after the end of their affair. In the first stanza, the poetic voice recalls the day when the relationship was over and painful. He is accusing his lover of only being half in love with him. He describes his beloved as a corpse, now that her feelings toward him died. In the second stanza, the poetic voice is affected because his beloved broke all the promises. The light represents the truth that affects the woman's reputation. When he heard her name, he kind of shared the shame his beloved might be experiencing. In the third stanza, the nail represents the death and the end of their relationship. He still don't comprehend why his lover didn't love him anymore if his feelings were real and no one ever knew about the relationship. In the fourth stanza, the poetic voice declares how he suffered in silence since all was a secret. He considers how would be an encounter with her in the future. He declares that even in the future, the sorrow will remain there in his inner being. Lina, tell me about the semantic analysis in your excerpt.
Okay, the story of an hour. This title infers that it's going to be narrated a story with events that happen in just 1 hour. The narrator of this story provides information about the main character, who is Miss Mallard, who has a heart problem that might be cause of her unhappy marriage. I can see how ironic it gets her when she felt so excited and happy to hear about her husband's death. I think it's because she started to concern about how her soul and her body will be free without of being a property of her husband anymore. By that, Miss Mallard thinks of the new spring life, which I think it can mean that she will have a new start of her life. And at the end, unfortunately, she died of a heart disease of the joy that killed her, and it is because she lost again her freedom and her beautiful dream when she figured out that her husband was still alive. With this, we see again of her feeling from happiness to sadness. Kate Chopin was criticized because of her feminist perspective, and I found a comment that said that the story initially rejected by Century Magazine and the Bag as well, and it was published only after joint collecting by Yao Fall generated critical acclaim.
Lina, to conclude the analysis, you can observe that in the previous analysis of the two masterpieces, there is very little in common since one opposes the other one. For instance, in one movement, reality is portrayed, and in the other one, reality is idealized. Now, Byron's romantic subjectivity defines him as a romantic poet, but the subjectivity has been criticized as too theatrical by John Keats. But for other poets, like Baudelaire, the theatrical style defined Byron greatest as a lyric poet.
On the other hand, naturalist writers focus their work on life in society as such. Kate Chopin is a brilliant author and realist writer who uses various linguistic devices and thus represent her work in her time. I mean her unhappy marriage and oppression that she is under. Just an example of how the wife experienced in that time it was.